Welcome to The Criminologist, the podcast dedicated to educating and entertaining our listeners. We bring you subject matter experts from around the world and share the latest and greatest evidence-based practices and interventions to help individuals desist from a life of crime and delinquency. This podcast avoids stereotypes and biases in favor of the lived experiences of those we can best learn from. Now, please welcome the host of The Criminologist, Joseph Arvidsson.
Hello and welcome to episode 136 of The Criminologist podcast. Happy to have you all with us today. With the full realization that the internet is forever, coupled with the fact that I'm also aware that listeners don't necessarily digest these episodes as they drop, I would point out nonetheless that we here at the Criminologist Media Group are producing this episode in December of 2022. Not quite time for my year-end review episode, but close enough to the new year that I want to take a pause to reflect on the direction of the podcast moving forward. Original listeners, you OLs out there, will recall that my initial intent when I launched this podcast back in April of 2020 was to use this platform to highlight and, dare I say, model some of the core correctional skills in use today. And to best model these skills, I utilized a fictitious caseload of felons. I would encourage our newer listeners to go back and check out some of those initial episodes. As the show evolved, though, it morphed into more of a traditional interview format. I have had the honor of interviewing and indeed learning from some of the world's leading subject matter experts in the field of corrections, criminology, desistance from crime, addiction, and criminal justice. My question to you all is this: in the name of growth and development, where do you think this podcast should go in the coming year? That is, do you enjoy the current format of bringing you interviews with critical thinkers in their respective fields? Or do you miss and or are curious about a return to the approach of modeling the supervision of justice-involved individuals? Or perhaps you would like us to push the envelope in another direction. I have been toying with the idea of bringing you not one, but 2 or 3 guests at a time to present to the listeners a panel of expertise to debate a given topic of interest. I will be presenting you listeners with polls to gauge your thoughts on this. I've already posted such a poll on my LinkedIn feed, so my connections can go out and vote already. And they will also be appearing on the Criminologist podcast social media feeds of Facebook and Instagram in the coming days. If you're not on those feeds, please do so and share your thoughts. Speaking of guests, we are taking a pause from guest this week, but I wanted to whet your appetites, if you will, and tease you with some of the amazing guests we have lined up, which will be dropping in the coming weeks and months. Pia Puolakka is joining us all the way from Helsinki, Finland. Pia is going to be talking to us all about the fascinating topics of smart prisons and also the use of artificial intelligence for corrections. Pia has been doing some amazing work in these two fields and has actually been putting out some deliverables for the Confederation of European Probation. I'm really looking forward to talking to Pia all about these topics. I'm also going to be joined by Simon Bonk. Simon is the Chief Research Officer and Director of Business Development in Teleo. He'll be joining us all the way from Ottawa, Canada. Simon will actually be one of our very special American Probation and Parole Association guests, shining some of the great work that the folks with their International Relations Committee do for APPA. So looking forward to sharing my interview with Simon coming up in just a few weeks. Also, at the end of the year, I'm going to be bringing you a very special episode featuring not one, but two guests, as we've sort of debated here earlier. Jared Brown of Concordia University, who is also a frequent contributor to the podcast, will be joining us with Tim Templin. Now, Tim is the host of another podcast entitled Criminal Behaviorology. Criminal behaviorology is the synthesis of criminology and behavior analysis. The podcast reviews areas of importance to both fields and explores new possibilities as to where they might go. Criminal Behaviorology is a podcast for anyone interested in crime, psychology, history, and improving the world we live in. So Tim and Jared and I are going to have sort of a meeting of the minds on some of the topics that Jared has appeared on this podcast to talk about. Things like road rage, for example, I know was one. And also to get Tim's perspective because Jared's appeared in his podcast as well. So I'm really looking forward to this multi-guest approach. I mentioned APPA earlier and the great partnership we have with them, highlighting the work of their International Relations Committee. In that regard, so honored to let you know that Veronica Cunningham, Executive Director at the American Probation and Parole Association, will be joining us probably after the first of the year. And I'm really encouraging you to listen to Veronica. So much I could say about her, but I don't want to steal thunder from that interview because she is such a dynamic individual. If you are a newer listener to the show and you're curious as to what I'm referring to when I noted we started out highlighting core correctional skills by way of a fictitious caseload of felons, here is a sample of some of those individuals who have joined me on past episodes, just to give you an idea of where we're coming from. Hey, Mia, how are you? Thanks for coming in today.
Hey, good. No problem. I don't know. I'm just a little frazzled. I could only find like 15 minutes to park and I have to go get my kids. So yeah, I don't know. I have a lot going on, but glad to be checking in with you. How are you?
I'm well, and I feel your pain with the parking. I know it's a hassle having to come and park downtown. It's one of my causes. I'm always telling our administration we should make this easier for people trying to succeed and not have more obstacles in their lives than the average bear.
That's why I'm late too, because it just took me forever to find some place to park. So
no worries.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming down and again navigating those obstacles. That tells me a lot about your character and your commitment to make it through this period of supervision in your life and get on the pathway to success.
Yeah, I want to do everything right. So thank you.
Yeah. So Mia, as you know, typically when you come in, we like to look at your assessment as our sort of game plan versus your probation agreement. I tend to think of that probation agreement as the judge's to-do list, but that assessment's between you and I as far as what we feel is the best roadmap for you to succeed. Here it is again and again. You're no stranger to this. These are sort of the areas in your life that we feel we should dedicate some resources to best help you succeed. Anything today that jumps out at you that maybe we haven't talked about in the past or that you're curious about and we could maybe dedicate this session to?
I guess you mentioned a pro-criminal attitude, and I don't really think I'm pro-criminal. I'm trying to do the right thing right now. And so I'm confused about what that really means. And if that is an issue for me, I guess I want to work on it because I'm trying to do the best I can and be a good mom for my kids and a good role model. So if we could explore that, I guess I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that's a great question too. And again, not trying to excuse the language, but the authors of the tool, as we've talked about, they identified through the research various areas of people's lives that if they have a propensity of variables in that area can lead to outcomes which we don't like. And for most people, the easier ones to sort of wrap their head around are things like if someone struggles with addiction, for example, or if someone needs help in, maybe lack of education or lack of employment, stuff like that. It tells us point resources towards that. Or another one that you and I have talked about, or at least looked at, is the issue of companions, negative companions versus positive companions. And again, how those associations can lead to unfavorable outcomes. So the one you're talking about, again, it's really, don't get hung up on that pro-criminal or antisocial. That's just the researchers' language that they use. But it's really taking a look at your thought patterns. And again, we know that thoughts lead to behaviors, and that's just sort of criminology 101. We call it the thought behavior link. So what your assessment identified is you have certain thoughts that tend to lead to unfavorable outcomes. And a lot of times we see that manifest itself with people who, maybe justify their criminal behavior or they minimize their behavior, things like that. And again, when we did this assessment, that appeared on your assessment as an area that we could maybe focus on. Is that something you might want to take a deeper dive on today, Mia?
I mean, yeah, I guess I'm trying to be a better person and work on myself. So you're the professional. Yeah, I'll do whatever you think is the best.
So we have several tools that we can use. Here's one that I really like because it's visual. And I don't know about you, but I'm a very visual learner.
Yeah, me too.
It's called an alternate thoughts guide, but it's basically, if you remember junior high, not arithmetic. Boy, I wasn't great in math in school either. Between arithmetic and algebra, I'm struggling for the analogy, but it's like an equation basically. And it kind of walks us through this equation, and it shows how, if you simply change your thoughts, you can change favorable or unfavorable outcomes in your life. And again, as you can see here, I pulled it up on my screen, and I can print out a copy for you as well. It's just, again, sort of like an equation. So as you see, the first little box in this equation starts with a situation. So let me ask you this, Mia. Think back in your life to, we call them high risk situations, but a situation in your life where you find yourself in that situation and the next day you were looking back thinking, oh man, how did I get into this kind of thing? And again, as we've talked about, this isn't about jamming you up. So feel free to disclose, things that you might be a little bit apprehensive about. This isn't to get you in trouble. It's to help you.
Are you sure? I mean, you're probation. So if I tell you something that I did wrong or illegal, I'm worried that might get me in more trouble.
Well, and you know this as well from previous sessions when we've gone over role clarification. To your point, yeah, I wear several hats. And one of those is, as you say, that of compliance. I'm an officer of the court, so I've got a role to play with reporting behaviors to your sentencing judge. But I'm also your advocate, which means that, unless you tell me something that I feel was going to result in you hurting others or hurting yourselves, I'm a mandated reporter. For the most part, that stays between these four walls.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better. It's just hard to trust people in the system, but, I have 5 kids and I'm a single mom. So I have money issues. Obviously I'm not working. But I'm young and I like to look good. And so when I'm at the mall and I see something that I like, that's flashy, that's trending, that other girls are wearing, I get triggered and it makes me want to steal.
Okay, that's a perfect example. So in this first box here, where it says situation, I'll just put in, at the mall, and you maybe, like you said, walk past a store or a kiosk and you see something shiny, and you might want to steal it. So at that moment, Mia, let me ask, because you see the next box in the equation here says thoughts. What are you thinking when you see that? Again, that
I deserve that. I would look good in that.
Okay, let me write those in. I would look good in that. I deserve that. And I kind of talked over you. What was the other one?
I want it.
I want it. Perfect. So when you're having those thoughts, I want it, I deserve it, I look good in that. What are some feelings that you're feeling at that time?
Excited, like thrilled, like pumped up.
Okay, perfect. So again, here's where the equation and the math comes in. So those thoughts that you're having of, I deserve that, I look good at that, I want that, and those emotions and those feelings of being excited and thrilled and pumped up equal what behavior? What happens?
I'm going to take it.
Exactly. You're going to take it. So let's fill it into this box here. I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
The next part, if you follow the sort of sequence here down, it asks that we list, it says favorable outcomes and unfavorable outcomes, but in layman's terms, that means all the good shit and all the bad shit that happens as a result of your behavior, which was, I'm going to take it. So let's start with the good shit. What's the favorable outcomes or the good shit that comes out of you taking it?
Well, it feels like a success. Like I got what I wanted. I have the newest stuff, the newest shit. Like usually it's shoes. So people respect me when they see me wearing that. I feel good about myself in it because it almost is like a status thing. And so it makes me feel better about who I am. And then I just feel like I got away with something.
Okay. And then in the next box here, you see it says unfavorable outcomes. But again, in layman's terms, what's all the bad shit that might happen?
Well, they could catch me and loss prevention could act like mini cops like they do and try to lock me up or get me in trouble again, get on more probation, hear mess from my family, from you, other people that want me to do well in life, that assessment you do with me when we first, that would make it worse for me. I would have like more points on that from getting in trouble. And I guess I'd feel bad about myself that I got in more trouble.
Perfect. I appreciate you sharing that with me, Mia. So then again, if we think of, that scales of justice lady, and we were balancing out all the bad shit and all the good shit, which of these columns has more stuff in it, or which weighs more?
The bad stuff, definitely.
Yeah. And then in the final little square here, triangle, it says balance of outcomes. And as you just said, the bad shit outweighs the good stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great sort of illustration of how these tools work. Now, here's the fun part, Mia. Changing all that bad shit to those outcomes, it's as simple as just simply changing your thoughts. So I'll show you this. We're going to use the exact same situation. You're at the mall, you see a pair of shoes you like, but this time we're going to try to come up with some alternate thoughts. That's why I call this an alternate thoughts guide. Some alternate thoughts or some alternate thinking that might result in better outcomes. All right. Not necessarily ideal outcomes, just better outcomes. So what are some thoughts when you're at the mall and you see those shoes? Could you replace those previous thoughts with that might result in better outcomes?
I mean, the first one would probably just be, it's not worth it. Sure. After going through those positive and negatives, it's just, that's not worth it. If I really want something that bad, I could save up for it and get it the right way so I didn't feel bad. And just maybe like take a deep breath and relax.
Yeah, perfect. And then if you're having those thoughts, what would some emotions or feelings be that you have after those thoughts?
I think I'd be proud of myself.
Sure.
And feel just like good about my decision making and just being a mom, being proud of that I'm doing the right thing that I want my kids to see me doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So those thoughts plus those feelings, again, just like a math equation here, would equal what behavior this time?
Just like walk away, like keep going, and yeah, not take it.
Yeah, you'd walk away, right?
Yeah.
And then again, if we sort of follow the sequence chain here, we're going to do the same thing now. We're going to add up all the good shit and all the bad shit, but this time it's a result of the behavior of you walking away. What would the favorable outcomes or the good stuff be with that behavior?
And I'm not like looking behind my back or worried that I, have somebody following me. I didn't go to jail. Mm-hmm. I feel good that I made the right decision.
Exactly.
And my family would be proud of me.
Yeah, your family would be very proud of you, right? Mm-hmm. What would some unfavorable outcomes be, or some of the bad stuff with that decision?
I guess really just that I don't have the new shoes.
Sure, exactly. So again, same as we did before, let's put those on the scales and see which weighs more, which has more weight to it, which is going to tilt the balance there. The good stuff or the bad stuff?
The good stuff for sure.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So you can see here, what did we do? It was the same situation, but you changed the outcome of good stuff versus bad stuff. And it was as simple as doing what, Mia?
Just changing, I guess, the way I think about things.
Yeah.
Like how my thoughts really kind of affect what I actually do.
Yeah, exactly. There's no, magic potion to it. It really is as simple as that. But now that being said, sometimes it's easier said than done, right?
Right.
And as we know, with everything in life, whether it's, exercise or routine or habits, it's all about practice.
Yeah.
So if you're up for it, I printed some of these alternate thought guides out for you, and we've been using the junior high math analogy. I'm going to give you some homework here. How about if I give you 2 or 3 of these guides, which I think you've got this down now, and then between now and our next session, just, whether you might find yourself in a risky situation, or even if you're just, sitting on the couch and you think of something in the past that happened that didn't have such great outcomes, go ahead and practice trading out those thoughts, those alternate thoughts, and fill in some of these alternate thought guides for me, and we can discuss them when you come back next time. What are your thoughts around that? How does that sound?
Yeah, cool. I could definitely do that, and I think it might just be beneficial in helping me understand all of the stuff that we kind of went through. I mean, I get it, but to do it on my own, I think would be a good idea. So yeah, I'm down.
Cool. I appreciate it, Mia. I don't want you to get a parking ticket out there either. So typically we talk longer than this, but we had a concentrated, fruitful session today, I feel. How do you feel about today?
I feel good. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
And thanks for being concerned on my parking, because I really can't afford a ticket. So
yeah, no worries. All right. Should we make an appointment, say, a month from today?
Yeah, that works. Same time?
Yep. Same bat time, same bat channel.
All right.
All right. We'll see you then, Mia.
Thanks, Joe. Bye.
Right. Bye-bye.
So that was our client, Mia Wallace. And as you just heard, we essentially went through some cognitive restructuring. We used a tool. There's a lot of tools out there that really all get at this notion that our thoughts control our behaviors. So if we want to change our behaviors, it can be as simply as changing those thoughts. And again, we can do this visually through a cognitive restructuring technique, which I just modeled there with our fictitious client, Mia Wallace. If you do go back and listen to those earlier episodes, I'll let you in on a little inside baseball trick or secret here. I named all those clients after cinema villains, if you will. So you might recognize Mia Wallace from Pulp Fiction, but if you're wondering where all those other names come from, they are all sort of an homage to the movie bad guys of some of my favorite films out there. This should give you an idea, though, of what I'm referring to when I'm asking in the polls if you want to go back and revisit that approach where I would highlight a core correctional skill or an intervention by use of this fictitious caseload of clients. Or perhaps we evolve into something where I'm asking our subject matter experts for their approaches that they might take with a particular client, whether it's strict adherence to the risk-need responsivity framework, perhaps dabbling in some desistance from crime approaches, maybe looking at their struggles through a trauma-informed lens, or all of the above. Again, maybe we can use those clients as a palette, if you will, to illustrate some of these points. If you are connected with me on LinkedIn, the survey is up. Also, check those Instagram and Facebook feeds from the Criminologist podcast for your chance to weigh in on where you think we should develop the show from here. I'm also thinking about bringing back the practice that I used to do of recording my guest simultaneously with video and audio, and then I would drop that video recorded interview on our YouTube channel. I got away from that practice and decided just to focus on the podcast, but in the spirit of change, I may revisit that as well. That will include a slight financial adjustment, if you will. But along those lines, I can share with you that if you wish to be a supporter of the show, go to the description of this episode and click on the link entitled Become a Supporter. By clicking on that link, you can learn details of how you may show your support for the Criminologist podcast and offset some of the financial cost associated with production of this program. Look for that link, give it a click, and you may become a supporter of the program for as little as $3 per month, or you can save some money by opting to become a yearly supporter. Consider that if you're an individual listener or if your agency enjoys listening and sharing this content in regards to your evidence-based training endeavors. Speaking of sponsors, let's hear from one of our favorite sponsors, the good folks over at Criminologist. Tired of those pesky risk factors? Fed up with those nagging periods of reoffending? Just can't seem to keep on the straight and narrow? Then try Criminologist. Criminologist is our patented repellent against criminogenic need. Criminologist is effective against the risk factors of delinquent past, dysfunctional family relationships, substance misuse, lack of pro-social leisure activities, deficits around education and employment, negative peers, pro-criminal attitude, and a history of antisocial personality pattern. Simply apply Criminologist at the onset of delinquent behavior or when actuarial risk assessment warrants application. Criminologist works by attacking criminogenic need at the source while buffering against future risk. Inspired by general personality and cognitive social learning theory, Criminologist identifies criminogenic need at its source. Then our top secret byproducts mimic prosocial modeling to elicit the onset of prosocial behavior. Once the cost for antisocial behavior outweighs the rewards, users begin seeing reductions in criminal deeds. Criminologist is available in regular, mint, or jasmine scent. Find Criminologist at all quality vendors, shops, and strip malls. Criminologist is not a substitute for proven evidence-based practices. Criminologist may cause mild discomfort or skin rash. In case of continued maladaptive behavior, users should subject themselves to proven core correctional practices. Criminologist has failed to result in significant effect sizes in recidivism reduction. Buyer beware, not sold in Canada. Okay, we will be back next week with a fresh episode. In the meantime, you may contact the show or reach out to us through our website, the Paragon Group, LLC.com, for training or presentations as to core correctional skills, program development, or, of course, the topic of desistance from crime. If you have questions or comments as to this podcast, feel free to contact the show via our email at thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. That's thecriminologistpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to follow us through our Facebook and Instagram pages at the Criminologist podcast. New fun images are being added all the time to those feeds. You don't want to miss out. Check those feeds for that upcoming poll as well as to the future direction of the program. Hey, we're also on Twitter at Crim Media Group. That's CRIM Media Group. Go ahead and give us a follow on Twitter as well. You may also connect with me, Joseph Arvidsson, on LinkedIn and follow both the Criminologist podcast and the Paragon Group on our LinkedIn pages. Hey, lastly, if you've not already done so, check out and subscribe to our aforementioned YouTube channel, The Criminologist, for additional content as to the themes of this podcast. Merchandise is now available. Visit us at the Paragon Group, LLC.com. Look for the tab entitled Shop for all the details you need to score a coffee mug, refrigerator magnet, or criminologist pen. And if you believe in what we're doing on the podcast, if you're part of the movement, please spread the word, tell a friend or a coworker or a colleague about us. Ask them to subscribe to the show, and of course, do so yourself if you've not already done so. And always remember, folks, there's no them, there's only us.
And they will criticize R&R, risk need responsivity, for being too focused on risk. And they don't bother reading that we have another principle in there about the importance of strengths and how they can be used.
The Criminologist podcast is a production of the Paragon Group, LLC. For speaking engagements, interviews, program design, or training opportunities, please visit us at theparagongroup.llc.com. If you enjoyed the show, you can find more content and videos on our YouTube channel, The Criminologist. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Both the Criminologist podcast and the Criminologist channel are brought to you by the Criminologist Media Group. Be sure to give us a 5-star review, and thanks for listening.